I'm almost done driving the stakes for these forms, and I've got the string line up to make sure the forms stay square and straight. But the plumbing's done. Plumbing's holding pressure now. My plumber originally had a little air gauge on top of that pipe, a big long pipe there. It was cut down shorter, and he had a little air gauge on it. He put 5 pounds of pressure in the system, and it's all capped off. It held for about 12, maybe 16 hours, right at 5 pounds. And then I come out the next morning, and it was down to 1 pound or half a pound, something like that. So I called him up and I said, something went wrong. It was holding for a long time, but now it's down to 1 pound. So there's got to be a leak in one of your caps, I'm guessing, and that's kind of what it turned out to be. When you glue these caps on, with the ABS glue, you're supposed to wait, I think 20 minutes before you put any kind of pressure to it. And he waited, I don't know, we sat around BSing for a while. Weren't really keeping track of time, but I think it was one of the last ones he put on. And over the course of 12 to 14 hours, a little pinhole popped in it. Must have been a bubble somewhere. We put some pressure to the system and it was holding again. So we knew we weren't going to find the leak just kind of looking around. And you can use soapy water and spray it on everything and wait. But he just decided, he's like, I'll put this 10-foot stack on here. Kind of requires a 10-foot head of water if you're going to water test it. And we'll put this 10-foot pipe on here, fill it full of water. We'll drill little holes in the top of all these caps. You see where the screw is. That one's a little bigger because he had a hard time sealing it back up. But we've got little screws. See, you take the screw and you punch a hole in it, and that lets all the air come out. And when the water starts shooting up, you take a screw with some Teflon tape and you screw it back down in that hole and it seals it back up. Well, in going around doing that, he seals this hole back up on top of this toilet, and there's the tiniest bead of water shooting out right on this side here. It's just the tiniest little stream. You probably wouldn't even be able to see it. Well, matter of fact, he didn't even see it, and he brought me over and said, hey, I found our leak. He was looking right around there and saw this tiny little stream of water shooting out. So that was the leak. We found it, we fixed it. It wouldn't have mattered anyways, because that pipe is way too tall. That pipe, not to mention the cap, is getting cut off to put the toilet in there. So the leak in the system wouldn't have been a big deal, but we've got water sitting in it now, and there's no leaks anywhere that we can see. Of course, it's been raining the last couple days, so the ground's all wet. I wouldn't think that there would be a leak in any of his connections. We were both sitting there putting his pipes together and backfilling with gravel and setting the grade to it. And he was using plenty of glue and holding it for a while, and then he let go and look at it, because sometimes it'll kind of spread apart if it's still too, and it hasn't set up enough. The ABS pipe and the ABS glue they make a chemical reaction, and they'll push the two pieces back apart. So we'd watch it for a minute, wouldn't push back apart, go on to the next one. Using plenty of glue, so I have full confidence that there are no leaks at the seams. Not to mention it held pressure for, I want to say 12 to 14 hours before I noticed that it had dropped all the way down to 1 pound. As for the forms, I'm staking those up, getting them straight, they're already square, so I'm getting them straight and keeping them plumb. My wife and I are out here, I don't know, a few times throughout the staking process, running my grading system around, making sure that everything's staying level. But I've got this nail, this little two-headed nail, I forget what they call them, and then the string wrapped around there, pulled tight, and it sits right on top of that seam right there. So as you're looking down on it, that string should line up with that seam. This one's maybe a 1/16 of an inch off. I don't think that's going to matter too much. It goes all the way down there. So that gives me a line as I'm setting the stakes and putting screws in. I can line it with that string and it'll be dead straight. I've got plenty of stakes. Most of the metal stakes are going straight up and down like this one, and those are setting grade. That one's at a little bit of an angle. And then I've got angled stakes, and I've got these other stakes coming off to kickers going down on the ground. These form boards are super solid. I can lean up against them and they won't go anywhere. And I don't think the concrete, even though it's going to be at the top where most of the weight is going to be at the top 8 inches, because that's basically the top of the slab is going to be 4 inches thick, and then it's going to get a little thicker where the footings are, maybe the top 8 inches, because I'm going to backfill a little bit behind the form at the bottom. There's not going to be that much pressure. I can't imagine there's going to be any more pressure than me actually leaning up against it right now. I've worked with concrete enough throughout my life to know that, number one, use lots of stakes. Don't ever skimp on stakes. You might look at this amount of stakes and think, wow, that's a ton of stakes. You wasted a lot of money on stakes when you could only use half that many. You're crazy for using that many. The stakes are, I want to say 50 cents a piece for the wooden 3-foot stakes. The metal stakes are more expensive, but they're reusable. So I can always use those on the next project. But I think total, maybe I spent $100 on stakes, between 2-foot stakes, 3-foot stakes being steel, and then the 2-foot and 3-foot wooden stakes. It's not that much when you think about how much money you're dumping into concrete to build this form. The last thing you want to do is have a blowout somewhere, and that's what I'm trying to prevent. So I've got a ton of stakes out here. Even made a little stake for the pipe over there, being as that pipe's full of water. I didn't want the wind affecting it too much and snapping it off or messing with the plumbing. The more that thing sways in the wind, the more the plumbing down below it gets kind of screwed up. So I've got that staked off too. I think I'm going to call it a day for right now. It's getting a little late and it seems to be raining a little bit harder the later it gets. I found a dry spot to bring the camera out and give you guys a quick little update on the forms and staking. Oh, one more thing. So tonight before I go in, one thing I forgot to do that I need to do is have the sleeve for the water coming in. I believe the wall is right here. Yeah, the wall right here is where the water's coming in. So I'm going to notch out the footing right here, and I'm going to dig a trench down there that's a total of 36 inches deep, and I'm going to push a pipe through the outside. I think it's 1.5 inch piece of conduit that I'm going to run PEX tubing through to come up inside the wall, and I'm going to run PEX tubing out and down and connect it up over there to where the water comes down. I think it's about 3 feet deep over there. So we'll just have to bring it right down through and come into the house. I've got to have that in. I believe I have to have that in for the inspector to know where the water's coming into the house at. The inspector is due out tomorrow sometime. I don't know if it's morning or afternoon. The county couldn't tell me, but they told me he would be out tomorrow to get this all inspected up, and then I can start covering it up with gravel, packing it down, get it ready for some insulation, under slab insulation, and then rebar and the big concrete pour. So we're getting it going. It's taking a little bit of time. My arms feels like I have Popeye arms right now. My forearms are burning, pounding all these stakes in with I don't know what this is, like a 4-pound sledge. My little Thor hammer that I've been using. Found that hammer in the field of a body shop. Put a handle on it and used it on a lot of cars over the years. It works pretty good right here, just beating these stakes down in. I could have used a bigger sledgehammer, but my experience, you use a 5-pound, 8-pound sledge with a long handle on these wooden stakes and they seem to split a little bit faster. So I just use that little hammer and go to swinging. Getting a little tired, but it's getting done. Hang out, guys. We're getting there. Until next time, go make something.